93% of all American business owners paid more in taxes than legally required to pay, regardless if they paid for a high-priced accountant or not. For me, Point of Impact is making a difference in business owners' lives. Helping business owners make more money, keep more money, to leave a legacy for their kids. Because I think it's business owners and entrepreneurs that make the world a better place. You don't have to cheat in order to not pay taxes. You just have to know the system. And here's the facts.
Rondi, welcome to the Point of Impact. We're glad to have you here.
It is great to be alive and to be here with you.
Well, yeah, I've been excited to have you on. I love your material. I love your podcast. You teach, you speak on a topic that I think so many people have a visceral reaction to when they think about it. It's like a physically negative reaction to talking about taxes. But I think it's like the Robert Kiyosaki, the Rich Dad Poor Dad. Once you take you look around the curtain, once you take that, what was it, the red pill or the blue pill? Once you see the matrix, you can't go back.
Yeah.
So what is it about taxes that you say the game is rigged?
Well, the game is rigged.
What is it about it?
The game is rigged. And listen, taxes suck. Everybody agrees with that. Taxes absolutely suck. Our entire country was founded by entrepreneurs that hated paying taxes. We had Samuel Adams, who was a beer maker. Paul Revere, who was a badass. Our history books tell us that he just rode around on a horse, but he actually was a brawler, a bartender, a bar owner. And, they started the Sons of Liberty to stop the British from overtaxing us. And Ben Franklin is known to say there's nothing certain in life except for death and taxes. And he actually said that prior to income taxes. It wasn't until Abraham Lincoln created the Internal Revenue Service that we had income tax in 1862. And it was an attempt to pay back for the Civil War. But here's the thing. I love paying income taxes. I absolutely am excited every year to file my tax return and write a check. And that might seem crazy considering that if I followed the rules that your CPAs want to keep you following, they put you in a box. The box doesn't exist. But if I followed their ideas, I'd be paying over $1 million a year. Instead, in 2012, I paid $1,170. 2023, I paid $316. And just a few weeks ago, I wrote a check to the IRS for 2024 for $47.10. And I cannot wait until next year to write the IRS another check. And, taxes in America, it's voluntary. It's voluntary in a sense that it's voluntary for us to report it. We're the only country this way. The people that go to jail, that go to prison, they get their houses taken, their cars taken, their cash taken. It's not because, generally, it's because they cheated, they committed tax fraud, tax evasion, or they didn't file a tax return. See, it's not illegal. They won't throw you in jail necessarily if you don't pay your taxes, as in you filed and then you just don't have enough money to pay. In fact, they have entire programs to forgive that debt for you. It's if you don't file is when you get in trouble, or you file and you cheat. So you don't have to cheat in order to not pay taxes. You just have to know the system. And here's the facts. There is one tax code, but two tax systems. I'll repeat that. There's one tax code. It's 75,000 plus pages, created by Congress, enforced by the largest collection agency in the world, the IRS. One tax code, two tax systems. Why two tax systems? There's a tax system for the informed and a tax system for the uninformed. According to a study that Forbes did, Aaron, 10-year study, tens of thousands of business owners. Here's what they found. 93% of all American business owners paid more in taxes than legally required to pay, regardless if they paid for a high-priced accountant or not. 93%. Two tax systems. 7% of business owners in America are informed and they don't pay over what they're required to pay. I am one of them. My clients are some of them. As for the rest of America, 93% are paying more than they have to pay.
No, that doesn't make any sense. I mean, I understand it, but the thing is, you hire an accountant, a CPA, to file your taxes correctly, but that doesn't mean they're doing strategy for you. They're just trying to keep you out of jail.
Yeah, you hit the nail on the head. You said you hire the accountant to file your taxes for you to keep you out of jail. That is their job. See, a CPA is not a tax strategist. They're not a tax expert. In fact, according to the IRS, 90% of all CPAs are not even tax professionals. They don't even file taxes. You go to school. CPA stands for Certified Public Accountant. And a lot of CPAs take offense to this and they get upset with me when I say it. And the only ones that do are the ones that file taxes. The ones that actually know they don't know anything about tax law are like, yeah, we're in agreement with you. We went to school for 4 years to learn accounting. We work for the bank. We work for Amazon. We work for Fortune 500 companies. We work for billionaires' family offices. 90% of the licensed CPAs in America do not file taxes. They're accountants. The A students go to work for Fortune 500 companies. The B students generally go to work for banks. It's the C students that open up the tax offices because they can't get a job with the banks. It's the D students that go work for the IRS because no one will hire them. So keep that in mind. So why do 93% of business owners pay more in taxes than legally required? It's because they're relying on a CPA to create strategies. A CPA is nothing more than a referee. Think about it like this in football. Imagine if Tom Brady was still playing football, or imagine when he was in the Super Bowl and he called a timeout and he ran over to the referee and says, "Ref, you know the game better than anybody else. You know the rules better than anybody else. What play should I do next to beat the opposing team? What should I do, referee?" That would never happen. That's ridiculous. No, they run to the coach. Why the coach? Because the coach studies the opponent. The coach knows the plays, knows the players, creates strategies and plays to beat the opposing team. The CPA is your referee. They're there to follow the rules.
That guy dancing on the side of the road in the Statue of Liberty costume isn't going to strategize.
Yeah. Listen, those guys, Liberty Tax, they're great for W-2 employees. If you're a business owner and you're using Liberty or TurboTax or H&R Block, you, my friend, are getting screwed. And you don't even know. You are tipping the IRS. You know, when you go to everywhere you go, I was at an airport a few weeks ago at a Pizza Hut. And it was a kiosk where you ordered your food. There was no humans. You ordered it and it come out of a little tube thing, a little like sleeve, right? So you ordered your pizza and it popped it out. No human interaction. And then it asked if you wanted to leave them a tip. It is so ridiculous, the tipping culture today. But 93% of business owners tip the IRS every year to the tunes of almost, according to the study, it's $56,000 on average in overpayment for 93% of business owners.
Mm-hmm.
But why?
So, okay, if it's not your accountant, who teaches, who shows you the way? How do we find out how to pay zero taxes?
Yeah, you really need a tax advisor or a tax strategist or tax professional, someone who focuses on creating strategies and plays for your individual business, someone who studies the tax code, which is 75,000 pages, versus the tax manual, which is what CPAs study, which is only 500 pages. I'll give you an example. Yeah, I'll give you an example, Aaron. Have you ever heard of IRS code or IRC, Internal Revenue Code 280A? IRC 280A. Have you ever heard of that?
I do, and I've also been to the Masters once.
Okay, awesome. So for the listeners and the watchers, IRC 280A is also known as the Augusta Rule. It's been in the law book since 1976, 50 years. People ask all the time, well, what if they change the law? They're not going to change it. Congress put it in there for a reason, because they all use it. So here's what IRC 280 says. Any taxpayer is allowed to rent their domicile that they use as a residence to anyone in America, or anyone really in the world. They can rent it to anyone for any amount for up to 14 days and do not report it. It's the only place in the entire tax code that has no limit on how much and tells you not to report it on your tax return. In fact, if you report it on your tax return the way your CPA tells you to, it's a $5,000 fine. This is why CPAs don't tell you about the Augusta Rule. I speak on stages all over the world, and I ask people, raise your hand if you've heard of it, of Augusta Rule, and a bunch of hands will go up. And then I'll say, how many are actually doing it? And it's rarely even one person out of 100. So here's what IRC 280 is. And I said domicile because a lot of people think that you have to be a homeowner. You don't. It doesn't even have to be a house. It can be an apartment. It can be a condo, a townhome. It can be a boat. It can be an RV. It can be a van down by the river, if that's where you're living. The code says that you, as a taxpayer, have a right to rent your residence 14 days a year, 100% tax-free, unlimited monies, don't report it. To give you an idea, the most expensive Airbnb, which is not the most expensive house in America, but it's the most expensive one I can find, is in Aspen, Colorado. It's $55,729 per day. For 14 days, that is approximately $800,000. It's $786,000 something. If you're married, both you and your wife get to do it, which is almost $1.6 million that if you own that house or rented the house for that matter, $1.6 million that you can earn and pay no income tax on it.
Wait, you can both do the same place in
any taxpayer
14
in
days
America
each.
can do it. Any taxpayer in America. So let me ask you a question. If I gave you $100, Aaron, would you let me come move into your house for a day? You got to take your kids out and your wife out. You got to go to a hotel or sleep in the van by the river. For $100, would it be worth it for you to uproot your life like the people in Augusta, Georgia do every year for 14 days? They uproot their life. They move out. They move into a hotel room and they let, Tiger Woods come stay in their mansion. Would you, if I gave you $100 a day for 14 days, I give you $1,400 tax-free, would you uproot your life and let me move into your house and sleep in your bed?
Sure.
For $1,400?
Well, we're in a pretty...
I doubt your wife would let you do it.
We're in a vacation area, so it'd probably be more.
Yeah. How about $140,000 or $1.4 million like they do in Augusta, Georgia for the Masters? You don't have to live in Augusta. It's anywhere in America you can do this. This is one little paragraph out of 75,000 pages of tax code. 99.99% of all the tax code, Aaron, is how to legally not pay income taxes. Only 68 pages of the entire code has to do with charging you tax. The rest of it is how to legally follow the rules and not pay income tax. And that's just one thing. Your kids, how many kids you got, Aaron?
Yeah, well, how did you get into this? I mean, would you be fire? Thank you for your service, by the way. I think you were also in the Air National Guard.
I was in the Army National Guard. I was attached to the first group. So I was on a medevac helicopter for 15 years. And then I was a fireman for Littleton, Colorado, first responder at the Columbine High School shooting. And that was great. I think that was the funnest job I've ever had in my life, was being a fireman, driving the fire truck at 100 miles an hour and saving lives every day. It was amazing.
You know, I became a bomb technician, EOD, in the military because fire scares the shit out of me.
Yeah. Yeah.
But well, thank you for your service, by the way. But how did you make such a transition?
You know, I probably shouldn't be here with you right now because I grew up really poor in Southwest Idaho. I grew up in a shack that had no running water. We got our food out of a dumpster. Had no running water, no electricity. You know, the government shut down. They're complaining about people not getting food stamps. I didn't get food stamps when I lived in the shack because my parents wouldn't take money from the government. So we just went to the dumpsters. And at 15 years old, I got tired of getting beat up all the time from my stepdad. And at 15 years old, I made a decision to leave with the goal of becoming rich. I was going to become rich so I could save my siblings. I'm the oldest of 13 kids. I was going to save my mom from the relationship, and I was going to save my siblings. So I went to work. I left home at 15, bounced around in foster care, in and out, in and off of couches, etc. Eventually ended up in John Day, Oregon, where my cousin introduced me to Wally Williams, who took me under his wing. Wally was a very successful entrepreneur, extremely wealthy, and he ran funeral homes. So at 17 years old, I became the youngest licensed funeral director and embalmer in Oregon. And I worked for him for 4 years. He taught me how to deal with people that are grieving. They lost their family member. He taught me how to embalm people. He taught me about money and credit and taxes and petty cash. And came really in handy later when he taught me how to bury people very successfully. And so I have 2 daughters, and my daughters seem to let their boyfriends know that, hey, my dad used to bury people, so you got to be nice to me. But he taught me one thing that really stuck with me, and it stuck with me now for 37 years. And I've kind of built my life around this one quote. And I know you asked for a quote at the end. I'm going to give it to you up front, at least one of them. And here it is. How much money you make is not as important as how much money you keep. And no one will fight for your money as hard as you will. And no one cares about your money more than you do. Not your CPA, not your attorney, not your real estate agent. Nobody cares about your money as much as you. It is your responsibility, and only yours, to make sure you keep more. So how much money you keep is not as important as how much you make. And so I've literally lived my entire life like that. Unfortunately, it took me 37 years to get where I am today to learn really the code. I've always focused on reducing my income tax legally, ethically, and compliantly. It's just it took me 37 years to learn the best way to do it. I used to do what most business owners do, and that was try to get to zero at the end of the year. Go buy a new truck every year, maybe 2 or 3 trucks, or put money in a 401k, or donate charity, or whatever the latest recommended thing the IRS wants you to do. And unfortunately, when you try to get to zero every year, you have zero left at the end of the year to invest. And it's hard to get wealthy, very wealthy, and leave generational wealth. And I've cracked the code on now how to not get to zero, how to use jewelry and art and watches and Ferraris and Lamborghinis and real estate, and how to leverage that in a corporate structure that allows you to make millions of dollars a year and pay no personal income tax on it. It's what the wealthy do. It's what corporate America does. Every single Fortune 500 company does this. Every single one of them do this. And so I've created a system that allows your average, everyday, blue-collar, white-collar person to do it and not have to be an Amazon or an Apple or a Starbucks.
You said, you mentioned before the, what was it? Own nothing, control everything. Is this what you're talking about? Maybe the, was it the 3-tier system?
Yeah, so John D. Rockefeller was, we don't know if he really said it or not, but he lived the lifestyle, and that's own nothing, control everything. You know, the U.S. government, they tried for almost a decade to arrest him and serve him when they were trying to break up his monopoly. And what they didn't realize is he didn't own any of it, but he controlled it all. And when they broke up his monopoly, which was U.S. Steel, or I'm sorry, not U.S. Steel, U.S. Oil, it made him a trillionaire because they broke it all up. And so now he had all the competition. He controlled 93% of the oil in the world. Okay, so they said he was a billionaire, but come on. 93% of the oil, you know, and they don't keep, when they track money from 100 years ago, they really don't do it properly with inflation. But he's coined for saying own nothing, control everything. And I live that lifestyle. I don't own very much. I own some clothing, and that's about it. I don't like this watch that I have on right now. I don't own it. It's not mine. It's in my corporate structure. So part of what I do is I create corporate structures, and then I implement the tax code along with the uniform commercial code together in a big structure. So if you went out, a lot of people say, hey, if you start an LLC, it'll save you a bunch of money in taxes. Not true. LLCs don't save you anything in taxes. Oh, if you go and get an S Corp, it's going to save you money on income taxes. Not true. It won't save you a single dime in income taxes. You should do a C Corp. Then it'll protect your assets and save on taxes. Not true. It is going to cost you twice as much. But if you combine them all together, an LLC with an S Corp and a C Corp and an irrevocable trust, you now can live the lifestyle of owning nothing, controlling everything, and paying no personal income tax. So that's what I set up, and that's what I've been spending the last decade or so helping my clients do, and that's what I'll do for the rest of my life.
Well, okay, so on the flip side of that, I belong to a number of military and real estate investing groups, and all the time I hear people, see posts online about when do I start an LLC for, should I do it for every house? Should I do it for a business? Or I do the S Corp, C Corp? Can you kind of break this down? So because it can get extremely confusing which entity to form, when, and then how do you actually do it so you don't pierce that veil of liability? And is there a point where it's just not necessary, or when does it become useful?
That's a great question. I'm going to upset a bunch of people right about now. It's going to blow some minds. So here's the facts. LLCs, the way most people do it, provide you with no asset protection, no corporate veil in all 50 states. If you have a single member LLC or an LLC where it's you and your wife, you and your husband, you and your friend, but it's solely controlled by two people, not one single state in America recognizes it as a limited liability company that protects your assets. In fact, when you set up the LLC, you would have gotten a letter from the IRS as a disregarded entity. So if you're doing sole member LLCs or two member LLCs, there's no asset protection there. It needs to be at least 3 members or more, and you can't have more than 20% ownership in order to get the actual limited liability coverage, according to the way our courts work. So when should you set up an LLC? Well, generally, if you're going to do it in real estate, most people do it wrong. And there's guys out there like Pace Morby, which I respect. He's a great entrepreneur. Unfortunately, what he teaches about asset protection is dead wrong. He's not keeping up with the times. He still teaches to put a trust at the top. Unfortunately, that's wrong. It's the highest taxed entity out there. Trusts are paying 39% taxes, where if you had a C Corp at the top, it caps out at 21%, almost half. The other part, he tells you to put it in a revocable trust. You probably have heard people say, put your real estate, your house you live in, your assets, your business in a revocable trust. If you do that, you're going to pay twice the tax, and it provides you with zero asset protection, because revocable trusts, while you are alive, provide no asset protection whatsoever. If you get sued, you're going to have to disclose to the courts that you have a revocable trust, and you're going to have to disclose what's in the trust. And now it is open to your creditors and it's open to the plaintiff. Revocable trusts work if you die. If your house is in a revocable trust and you die, then your family gets the assets inside the trust without going through probate. That's the advantage of it. That's the only advantage. And it's kind of, revocable trusts give you great camouflage. So imagine you were a military guy like me. Imagine if you were in Ukraine right now. It's a horrible situation. If you were a soldier in Ukraine, you have a choice. You can fight the Russians with either the best camouflage out there or an Abrams tank. And they don't have javelins. So the Russians will just pretend they have no way to pierce through that tank. No way to get in. No, they could shoot at it with their Glocks. They can shoot at it with their AK-47s. But as you know, and I know, you can shoot all day long at a tank with an AK-47. It's not going to do anything. It's just going to make a bunch of noise. So would you rather have the world's greatest camouflage, or would you like to just be out in the open in the tank? Because knowing if you have the camouflage and they find you, you're dead. You're now captured. That's the trust, the revocable trust versus the irrevocable trust. The revocable trust is the camouflage. It's hidden from the public. But once you get sued, they found you, and you have to disclose what you have inside that trust. With a corporate structure like a Wyoming 500-year dynasty C Corp, they all see you. It is clearly listed on the Secretary of State's website. They just don't know what's inside of it. And there's no way to pierce that corporate veil. They can't get into it unless you commit fraud. And if you commit fraud, this whole thing doesn't work anyway. But if you went and murdered someone, they can't break into it. But if you commit fraud, then the U.S. government can come in there and break it up. And I know that's sad to say murder someone, but look at O.J. Simpson. Murdered a couple people. They didn't get his assets from him because he's had it hidden inside of corporate structures in Florida. So what's the best way to do it? Unfortunately, what most people do is they'll buy a piece of real estate, a rental, and they'll put that in a LLC, and then they do a property management, a lease, and then the tenant pays that LLC. So husband and wife own the LLC. The house is inside the LLC. If husband and wife get in a car accident, or one of their teenagers get in a car accident, or the tenant falls down and scrapes their knee, the plaintiff is going to sue the husband and wife. They're going to sue the LLC, and they're going to take everything. So putting a house in an LLC and then having the tenant pay rent to that LLC is just dumb. It doesn't work. And there's no there's no tax benefits to that. So what I do for my real estate clients is we use LLCs, but we use a series of them. So the house goes into a state LLC where the house is. So I have a client right now. It's got 240 properties in St. Louis, Missouri. So we have 240 LLCs that each house is in. One house per LLC. Then there is and he does not own that LLC, by the way. So the house is inside of an LLC that he's the manager of. He controls it, but he does not own it. Well, who owns the LLC that the house is in? An additional Wyoming LLC. So a Wyoming LLC owns the Missouri LLC. My client controls both LLCs. Then we bring a third LLC in, which is a property management LLC that is also domiciled in Wyoming. The tenant pays rent to the Wyoming Property Management LLC. The holding company LLC does a contract with the property management LLC to provide the management services. So the tenant pays property management LLC. Property management LLC keeps 10%, just like any other property management company, gives 90% of it to the holding company. The holding company then pays the mortgage on the property. The tenant never knows who actually owns the house. And if you go to the Secretary of State's website, like in Missouri, and you look it up, you'll see the house is in the LLC, and the LLC is owned by a Wyoming company. If you go to the Wyoming Secretary of State and you type in the name, you're not going to see anything except for who created it, which would probably be Robin Jones, if you hired me to set up your LLC. So now if a tenant falls down, scrapes its knee, the only people it knows about, and the only company it knows about, is the property management company. So it's going to sue the property management company because that's the only company they know. That property management company has no assets. None. Zero. And guess who owns that? Not you. You just manage it. Another LLC owns it. So what happens is they scrape their knee, they sue the property management company. The property management company has no assets. And because it's in Wyoming, you don't even have to fight the lawsuit. There's no reason to even pay the attorney fees to fight it. You could spend hundreds of thousands of dollars fighting these lawsuits. Why? You're in Wyoming. Let them file a lawsuit. Let them sue you. Let them get a default judgment against the LLC, because Wyoming is a non-charging state, which means if you get sued and you lose and they get a default judgment against the LLC, the judge cannot take charge of the company. It's a non-charging order state. Whereas in California, you get sued, the courts can take over the LLC, they can drain the bank accounts, they can sell the assets, they can sell the entire LLC or the corporate structure. But in Wyoming, it's non-charging. So all they can do is file the lawsuit, get the judgment, file a lien against the LLC that has no assets, and stand there with their hand out like the Democrats and wait for someone to give them money. Or like any politician, just please give me some money. No, I'm not going to pay you. And there's nothing they can do, Aaron. And this is owning nothing, controlling everything. And who cares if they sue you? Because you don't own it, so they can't name you in the lawsuit because you're not the owner. There's no cause. They might name you, but then you simply file a motion to have the courts remove your name because you're not the owner of that LLC. You're not even the owner of the house. You're just a manager, and you're not even paid. You're a volunteer.
What about?
So their only option is to sue the Wyoming Property Management LLC. They will win because you're not going to fight it. They're going to get a judgment. Who cares? It's just going to sit there. It's not going to stop you from doing anything. So that's
what about suing the owner of the property, which would be that
who's the owner?
LLC.
They're going to sue the property management company. And then you're going to notify them, I don't own the house. So they're going to say, well, who's the owner? And that's a great question, Aaron. Thank you for bringing that up. Inside the operating agreement that we set up for our clients, there's a non-disclosure agreement. This non-disclosure agreement says you cannot disclose anything about the company to anyone, including a judge or a plaintiff attorney. And it's been upheld with the Supreme Court. That's why I put it in my operating agreement. It is non-disclosure. You could sue me all day long, and there's nothing you can do to force me to tell you what's inside that LLC, because I don't have to, because of my non-disclosure agreement. So how are they going to find out who the owner is of the house? The only way they can find out is they have to get a warrant, go to Wyoming, and convince a federal judge to break the Wyoming Constitution and laws. See, Wyoming's the state that set up LLCs. No other state even had an LLC. Wyoming created them. It's a large portion of their budget or their revenue is LLCs. And Wyoming's great. There's no income tax, there's no reporting, and there's no non-charging. It's the greatest place in the world to set up a company. Not Bahamas, not Cayman Islands, not Bermuda. 2 weeks ago, the IRS sent out a notice. I love this because these guys on social media and TikTok and Instagram are like, put your stuff in a Bahama or Bermuda trust and no one will ever be able to get from you anything from you. 2 or 3 weeks ago, the IRS sent a notice to all of these folks that have foreign trusts. And they said, hey, by the way, we know you have a foreign trust. And if you don't file a tax return this year and pay taxes, it's 35% fine. Plus, we're going to fine you for the last 3 years. So we're going to fine you 140%. So if you have $1 million in your Cayman Islands trust, hiding it from the IRS, they know where you are. They know where your money is. They're going to fine you $1.4 million. They're going to take the $1 million and then send you a bill for $400,000 at 12% interest going forward, plus penalties and fines. So Wyoming's the greatest place on the planet to incorporate and domicile your businesses.
Okay, so what about public record? You said this investor had 250 LLCs in Missouri. Can't they just go look up tax record and sue that particular LLC that owns the house?
Yeah, so the way he's got it set up, he's got 240 properties in 24 different LLCs. So he went and put 10 houses in each LLC, which is so bad. Because if one tenant sues you, then it takes all 10 houses. I know a guy, Rod Cleef, and what I'm getting ready to share, he shares in front of thousands of people because he does these big conferences. He had $50 million in one LLC. All of his real estate in one, and a roofer fell off a 3-story building that he owned, paralyzed him, sued Rod, and got all $50 million. All of it wiped out overnight. So the client that I was talking about, he's got 24 LLCs, 10 houses in each one in Missouri. And yes, you're right. They can go to the Missouri Secretary of State, type in his name, and it'll pop up all the LLCs that he has. They can also type in the name of the LLC, and it'll pop up all the houses that are in there. That's in Missouri. It's a reporting state. What I am doing for him is we're going to set up new LLCs in Missouri that are owned by a Wyoming LLC. So now he's going to have 240 LLCs in Missouri. Each house is going to an individual LLC. 240. Doesn't have to file taxes on these LLCs. These are not LLCs that make income because they don't get any money. The money goes to the property management company. The money goes to the business hub that owns everything. The house goes into the LLC, so no tax return is required. The 240 LLCs will be owned by his Wyoming LLC. So when they go to the Secretary of State's website, so they go to Missouri Secretary of State and they type in that address or they type in the client's name or they type in the LLC, they will find it. They won't find his name on it, but they will find the LLC and they'll see it's owned by a Wyoming LLC. Because Wyoming's non-reporting, when they go to Wyoming to see who owns it, that's when the trail ends. Because Wyoming's not going to tell you who owns it. The fact is, the tenant or the plaintiff, whoever's suing you, will never know about the Missouri LLC because the tenant was paying the property management LLC. There's 3 LLCs, one that has the house, one that owns the LLC that has the house, and the property management company. They generally sue the property management company. And at that point, the property management company is going to say, I don't own this house. And the courts will say, well, who does? Well, I'm sorry, sir or ma'am. I can't disclose that because there's a non-disclosure agreement inside the LLC that says I can't disclose who owns the house. You'd have to get a federal warrant and get a federal judge in Wyoming to force me to do that. And you can't do that in Missouri. So that's how you protect your assets. You control it all. You just don't own it. And a lot of people, especially doctors and attorneys, they really struggle with this, owning nothing, controlling everything. A lot of people struggle with it, but primarily doctors and attorneys. And it's primarily because they have big egos. And they should. They went to school for a long time and they have, hundreds of thousands of dollars in debt. And most of them are miserable. And so when you go and say you can't make any money anymore, they're like, well, I went to college for 12 years. I should be able to make money. Well, you can make money. You're just going to pay income tax. You can't own the house anymore. Well, that means I'm not a homeowner. I'm going to be a renter. Yes, exactly. Well, I can't live with that. What would my friends think if they knew I was a renter? Who cares what your friends think? So what I mean by that is when you own nothing. So the house that I live in, Aaron, I used a VA loan 4 years ago to buy it. And thankful for Donald Trump because he did something for veterans that no other president had ever done. And he's done a lot of things. But one of them is he made it to where veterans could buy any house in America with their VA loan. Prior to Donald Trump, veterans were only allowed to buy houses in slums, in the bad neighborhoods. When I bought my house in Tahoe, out of the thousands of homes for sale, not one of them qualified for a VA loan because it limited it. It was like $385,000. There wasn't a house in Tahoe for $385,000. In Boise, Idaho, where I live, the limit prior to Trump was like $400,000. The average house price in Eagle, where I live, is $1.5 million. So how could I possibly how could a veteran live in Eagle? So Trump changed the law and said, wait a minute, this is ridiculous. You're saying that veterans should be able to buy a house with no money down because they served our country. Why did they have to live in the hood? So he made it to where there is no limit. So now veterans can buy any house anywhere in the world, or anywhere in America rather, anywhere in America for any price and not have to put money down. Now you have to put some money down if it's above the limit, but not on the full amount. So I was able to move into my house for $550. That's it. And then after 2 years, I sold the house to an LLC. I'm now a renter. I pay rent every month. I'm not the owner. So if you sued me and tried to take my house, you can't because I don't own a house. The other advantage to this is because the house that I live in is now a rental, 100% of the property tax, the insurance, the maintenance, the house cleaner, the electricity, the internet, the garbage, the water, the maintenance man, the lawn care guy, it's all tax deductible. And all of the interest is tax deductible. If I owned it, very little of it is tax deductible. In many cases, you don't ever itemize. For most Americans, they don't have enough bills to itemize. So when you own nothing, control everything, not only does it protect your assets, but it allows you to write off a lot more. So hopefully, I know that was a long answer to your question about LLCs and real estate, but hopefully I got to it.
That was fantastic. In fact, I've got more questions about the VA loan, but really not your lane. But I was curious, about the reinstatement. If you sell it to your own LLC, I know it's a couple, maybe a couple steps removed. But can you still claim like reinstatement since you sold it?
So I'm not sure about what reinstatement means, but I do. your question brought up something that I want to cover, and that's due upon sale clause. The due upon sale clause, that's what people, and I'm sure there are people like, you can't do that because if you sell your house, you're going to due upon sale clause. Here's the facts. If you sell the house to a trust, a revocable trust, the banks cannot enforce the due upon sale clause. If you sell a house to your LLC that you control, you don't have to own it, but you have to control it, they can't enforce the due upon sale clause. If I sold the house to you or some other person and I have no control over it, then the banks can come in, do the due upon sale clause, foreclose, and take the house. But if you control the trust or control the LLC, then they can't enforce the due upon sale clause, nor would they want to. You're making the payments. That'd be a PR nightmare. Can you imagine throwing a disabled veteran out of his house because he did asset protection and put it into an LLC to protect the assets? I mean, that'd be all over the news. That'd be horrible. So they'll never do it. They've never done it. You can't name one single case where the banks actually foreclosed on a due upon sale clause where the payments were being made and the person controlled the entity that owned the house. Not one.
Well, let's get a little bit back into, I know we're getting a little long on time here, but I want to get back into the taxes and how somebody, let's say if you own a cigar shop, you're a plumber, electrician, something like that, non-real estate related, you're just a business owner. And how do you start buying things or making these deductions through your business and doing it the legal correct way so that you're able to file. It is a bit convoluted for those that are uninitiated. So how do you do this stuff? What are the first steps you take?
I do a workshop every month. It's not free. It's like $29. So essentially it's free with 100% money back guarantee after the 3 days. If it wasn't worth it, I'll give you back your $29. So I do a workshop every month for 3 days, 1 hour a day for 3 days. And I go through and that's what I teach is like how to set up your LLC in a way that no one can take it from you or take your assets from you. How to set up your corporate structure to where you can legally make millions of dollars and ethically, morally, and compliantly not pay personal income tax on it. So the first thing I would say is if they're not going to attend my workshop, Robert Kiyosaki, founder of Rich Dad Poor Dad, has a partner named Tom Wheelwright. And Tom wrote a book called Tax-Free Wealth. And that's a great starting place just to understand how the game works. And that's a great place to start. IRS code 162A states that anything can be tax deductible as long as it's ordinary and necessary and common for the business to stay in business. So if you're a plumber buying tools in a truck or a van and buying pipes, that's ordinary, necessary, and common. Is it for a plumber? Is it ordinary, necessary, and common to drive a Ferrari? No. There's another part of that paragraph that says it doesn't have to be absolutely essential to be considered necessary. There's a little click. Doesn't absolutely be essential. So now, could the plumber write off the Ferrari? 100% he could, but not just because he's a plumber. It would have to be ordinary and necessary. So how would the plumber write off the Ferrari? Here's a way. I'm in a group called Fast Lane Drive. It is a worldwide group of entrepreneurs that in order to join this business networking group, you must own a supercar or an exotic, special exotics. If you do not own a supercar, you can't join this business networking group. So now my question is it ordinary and necessary then for the plumber who wants to obtain business from this worldwide entrepreneurs group? Would it be ordinary and necessary now for him to buy the Ferrari? Yes. if it gave him access to people who are going to do business with him. And if you can prove to the IRS that, hey, I use this car to get business from other business owners, and I've made X amount of dollars over the last 12 months while being a member, then the IRS is going to be fine with you driving the car and writing it off. Here's a cool thing, Aaron. How many kids under 18 do you have?
Under 18, I've got 3 boys.
3 boys. Under 18, and you have a business of your own?
Do they have a business of their own?
No, you.
Or do I? Oh, yeah, I've got a couple.
Yeah. So you could employ your kids as models and pay them $47,250 a year, every year, tax deductible for you, tax free for them. $47,250 by simply creating a little bit of paperwork, taking some pictures of your kids, putting it on the website, putting it on a postcard, using it in ads, social media. If you don't want to do that, hire them to do things. Back to the absolutely essential. Is it ordinary necessary for you to have employees in your business?
Of course.
Of course. Ordinary necessary. Is it absolutely essential that it's your children that are your employees? No. But it still qualifies under 162A. You could pay each one of your boys $15,750 a year, tax deductible for the business, tax free for you. $45,000 a year. Times that by 20 years when they're with you. That's what, $900,000 that you're paying taxes on that you didn't have to? Imagine if you put that in real estate every year. And now the kids own their own. They graduate high school with $400,000 of real estate or just cash, or put in a Roth IRA. Your kids will be a millionaire by the time they're 30 years old. And it was all because the IRS essentially paid for it. So that's just another one of the strategies that you can do, is put the kids on payroll, but not through your S corporation. Because if you do it through your S corporation, you pay payroll taxes. So under code 3361, you do it through your sole proprietorship or partnership. And that's how you legally can do it, not pay payroll taxes or any federal or state income taxes. Just one of the hundreds of things that you can do.
Mm-hmm. I could geek out on this all day long. Unfortunately, I know you don't have that time, and apparently neither do I, because the twins started demanding my attention for Halloween. So I think this is a good time to transition into the countdown to impact. As 3, 2, 1. 3 books, 2 quotes, and 1 person who have all made an impact in your life.
3 books. Rich Dad, Poor Dad would be one. Mm-hmm. Magic of Thinking Big would be another one. Another one that I read every single year, and there's so many. I could go on for hundreds of books. I'm a big reader. One that I read every year is Richest Man in Babylon. Richest Man in Babylon. And I could go all day long on books. So there's 3. Some quotes. How much money you make is not as important as how much you keep. That's a good one. Mm-hmm. And God is working in you, giving you the desire and power to do what pleases him.
That's perfect.
And as far as people, I would say Wally Williams was one of the first people that believed in me, is that when I was just a teenage kid, and took me under his wing and taught me how to be an entrepreneur. And there's a lot more people, but you said one, so there's one.
Well, Rondi, that's awesome. I love that. I'm going to get those books into the show notes, and really appreciated your time. Last 2 questions. 1, where can somebody who wants to learn more, where can they reach you?
Anywhere online, social media, at Rondi Lambeth, RONDI LAMBETH. I'm on every single social media platform. You can also go to rondilambeth.com. If you do follow me on social media, please make sure it is the verified account with the little blue check mark, because there are a lot of scammers that duplicate accounts and pretend to be me and try to sell you Bitcoin. I will never, ever send you a message asking you to buy anything or something. That's not what I do. So just, if you do that on social media, just make sure it's the blue check mark one. I pay for that just to protect my followers. So, and then if they want to learn how this process works, they can attend my almost free workshop. I mean, it's $29. In fact, let's do this. I'm going to give you a discount code so you can attend for free for all your listeners. Is that all right?
That'd be great. Thank you.
Winningthetaxgame.com. It's winningthetaxgame.com. Every month I do a workshop, which will be free if you use discount code TAXFREE, TAXFREE. You still have to put your credit card in, but as soon as you type in the promo code, then it doesn't charge you anything. It's just one of those Shopify websites that you have to put a credit card in. But as soon as you put in the discount code TAXFREE, you'll get to attend the 3-day workshop and all the recordings and all of that 100% free at winningthetaxgame.com.
Terrific. Well, that's definitely going in the show notes. Well, thank you so much. Last question, Rondi. What's your definition of living a life of impact?
2 years ago next month, I had a massive heart attack. A heart attack that, by all accounts, I shouldn't have survived. It's only a couple people a year actually survive this type of heart attack. It's 10 people in America that survive it. Most of them die. And I got to tell you, when I was laying on the hospital bed and they were doing, I had 2 surgeons working on my heart, trying to save my life. I remember laying there and my life didn't flash in front of me. It wasn't my first, near-death situation. I was in the military. I had 2 auto rotations on Huey. I was in 4 shootings. And so that wasn't the first time I almost died. I had a parachuting accident in 2021. I free fell 300 feet, Aaron. I ripped my foot off my right leg, shattered my right leg. So it wasn't like my life flashed in front of me. In fact, I remember telling God, I'm like, all right, I've had such an amazing life that I'm good. If my life is over and God's done working with me, I'm good with that. My things are my affairs are in order. I'm good. And God just told me, I'm not done with you. You're going to keep helping business owners. So my definition of a truly wealthy life, I talk about this in my podcast, School of Wealth. It's not about just money. It's about your life and how much you can give to your community and how much you can give to your family and leave a legacy and point of impact. To answer your question, my definition would be helping business owners make more money, keep more money, to leave a legacy for their kids. Because I think it's business owners and entrepreneurs that make the world a better place. It was business owners, Paul Revere, Sam Adams, John Hancock. They were all business owners. And they took on the most powerful military in the world at the time and crushed them, defeated them, and created the greatest country that world has ever seen. And it's because of business owners we're able to live in the world that we live in. I mean, look at the current administration. Whether you like it or not, it's business owners that made it happen. It was not politicians that made the election go the way it was. It's all business owners. In fact, almost everyone in Trump's administration are business owners. And they're making the world a better place. Look, they've ended now 8 wars. So I think for me, point of impact is making a difference in business owners' lives.
I love it. That's fantastic. And you're right. This nation was founded on entrepreneurship. It was. We were all, there weren't conglomerates. There weren't mega corporations. There were shopkeepers and newspapermen, print shops. So I think becoming an entrepreneur, going into business for yourself and doing it the right way so that you aren't paying any more taxes than you're absolutely supposed to. Is a noble way to be able to determine what you do with your efforts and the fruits of your labors.
I think it's the most patriotic thing you can do, to legally pay little to no income taxes. Don't pay the taxes you owe. Like I said, I wrote a check. I love writing a check every year to the IRS, $47.10 for 2024. I love writing that check.
Well, sir, this has been fantastic.
Anymore.
Well, I really appreciate your time and your experience, and wish I had more of it. So thank you very much.
You're so welcome. Great to be here.